Welcome to Bishop Fox Live from DEF CON 30. I'm Joe Seckman, AVP of R&D.
And I'm Tom Eston, AVP of Consulting, also at Bishop Fox. And I would like to introduce our next guest, and that is Yael from Bishop Fox, fellow Fox.
Yeah, hi guys.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, I'm Yael Basurto. I work as a security consultant with these guys. And yeah, pretty fun.
Yeah, really happy to talk about ICS and all of that fun, right? So you presented at B-Sides. You gave a talk called ICS Security Assessments 101. I find it interesting that you named yours 101 as well, as my talk at B-Sides was Management Hacking 101. So we kind of we didn't actually coordinate that. It just kind of happened. I thought that was kind of neat. But and I loved your talk, by the way. It was really great.
Thank you very much.
In fact, I was inspired by Josh Corman, who runs I Am the Cavalry, spoke after your talk, and he talked a lot about how your talk really emphasized that when we go in to test ICS systems and things that are very critical infrastructure, that where there may be lives at risk by doing a security assessment. I'm interested. He said that I liked how you, in your talk, discussed that you have to tread carefully, right, with these systems. You can't just come in there with a scanner and just start scanning everything, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about why that is so critical and on your approach and methodology when we're testing those systems?
Yeah, sure. So I put together this presentation because I have had some unintended experience with ICS. During the last years, I have been doing security assessments, even in my previous job. And normally the idea or what we were trying to do is not to touch these things and try to figure out how we can provide value still to the client, to doing other kind of reviews and assessing this ICS infrastructure. From that, I got a little research on what else we can do, not just scanning or throwing some network information without any care. So I found out there's a lot of material regarding ICS. There are methodologies proposed by people that actually perform ICS testing. And what I did was to put together some examples of what I have been doing into these steps of the methodology. And basically the most important thing to understand is that IT and OT are different. They face different problems. They face different operational goals. And they should be treated carefully, but knowing exactly what we are doing and how we are doing this stuff, so we can provide actual value to this testing.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, I know you had, in your presentation, you showed a device that you purchased. I believe it was off of eBay, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought it's a lot of information, more theoretical, so I think a short demo will make things a little bit spicy. So, so I bought 2 PLCs from Siemens. It took a really long time to get home. I work in Mexico City, so it really was hard to get those things. And I set up a model. So it was regarding water sensor level. The idea was the sensor reaches some level and it triggers an output. In this case, it was a fan, but the idea is to simulate like a turbine or wherever. And it was really fun because I had to, I first bought one PLC and I figured out it was not vulnerable to what I wanted to show. So I have to look into eBay, I guess, the vulnerable version of these PLCs. So it ended up well because now I had 2 PLCs and the model grew a little bit and I was able to show a little bit more of the attack and the methodology. Not testing the PLCs per se, but using web applications and other side attacks. Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, and I like how you're doing that in a safe way too, right? Still exposing the vulnerabilities of these systems, but without taking out a real water turbine as an example, right?
Yeah, I took some concepts from this model using a master-slave combination with these PLCs, and the idea was, okay, if you have in a real environment a master PLC that is doing some critical process, maybe you can take that out of scope and use a slave in a safe environment, so you don't actually mess with the turbine or something like that. So yeah, that was the idea, and it helped that I need to buy another PLC. So
Yep.
So what, I'm curious too, outside of a lab environment, like professionally assessing a running instance or an application, do you just outright say, no, too dangerous, not going to have it? Or is there a safe way to do like attack surface mapping, and I guess as compared to traditional like network-based attack surface mapping, what's the difference in care and decisions and things that you need to be cognizant of?
yeah, the interesting part of what I have found here is that before we get actually to the basic enumeration that could be an active testing, we have several other processes that we can perform so we understand what we are going to test. In this case, for instance, we can leverage the cybersecurity framework from the NIST. And I think it's really important to do interviews and plan walkthroughs with the people that is in charge of these critical operations, so we can understand how critical their processes are, if there is any safe way to test what we want to test. So if, for instance, they have redundancy into their processes, it is easier for us to take one part of this process and test it. But if they have only one critical component, and if that fails, everything fails, chances are we were not able to send data to that device.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think too, and I think this is kind of one of the areas that was core to your talk about ICS attacks. Insecure by default sounds terrifying first and foremost, but what rhyme or reason would lead to that protocol being insecure by default?
Yeah, as far as I understand from the research I've done, these devices were meant not to be secure because they initially were thought to be isolated, controlling processes. Right, Internet was not meant to be into these devices. But nowadays, everything is connected, and we need processes to watch these devices from a remote location, to manipulate them, and to make changes to their programming. So it is a reality that everything is connected, and it's going to be more connected. And these devices and these vendors doesn't care. Probably that's the wrong assumption.
Right,
but they don't imply that their devices should be secure. And there's actually a fight between vendors and clients where vendors expect security requirements are met by clients, while clients expect that security should be in place in those devices. And for us as a consultants, we need to understand this kind of fight and forget about it and see how we can provide value to our clients, understanding that probably the devices won't be secure anytime soon. So there should be other controls around this process.
Right, that's what I was going to say too. You putting on the defensive security hat from the offensive security hat and figuring out how to mitigate and wrap this system that never was really intended to be accessible. That makes a whole lot of sense too as well. And it's not necessarily the finger pointing aspect and just the requirements change as time changed and that kind of got left behind. Yeah.
One thing it'd be great, maybe you can expand on a little bit, is in the methodology that you were talking about, really there's things that are well known, right? Vulnerabilities that are already known. There's no need to retest those, right? Because the vendor may have a certain issue that is, even the client may know about. When thinking about how you deploy that methodology to those clients, what's the balance between like demonstrating how vulnerable a system is compared to, okay, I'm going to give you just, here's the list of known vulnerabilities, and then here is what I'm going to test for you. Like, how do you find that balance sometimes?
I think that if we are exploiting something, for instance, we need to do it as a means to an end. There's no real value in testing or exploiting things that the client knows that already can happen. For instance, injection. We know that we can inject into these protocols and there's no authentication, and so on. So what about if we focus on more interesting solutions for them that actually provide value, that actually block attackers to reach the devices in the first place and be able to inject into that? So, but for instance, if they want to show, I don't know, the C-levels, the actual risk of an attacker in their OT network, probably it's worth taking one device and try to inject on it and see how some process is broken by doing so. So I think we can include several vulnerabilities or several issues to report, depending on what is the need of the client and how can we provide the best value to that.
Great. Well, do you have anything coming up, any new research around ICS or other things that you might be working on?
I have some. I have a workshop here at DEF CON on secure coding for PLCs.
Oh, great.
So yeah, I'm really thrilling by it. After putting this presentation on, I think I do want to research more on the subject. It was a 101. Of course, I'm not an ICS security expert, but it would be great to be one, or at least to know more on the subject and to provide, good assessments on that. So yeah, I want to study a little bit more on that, and let's see what happens.
Great. Yeah. Well, we're definitely looking forward to seeing more of your research, and the stuff you've been doing has been fantastic. So.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you. Where can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
Well, I usually don't publish much. Well, I have Twitter.
Yeah.
My handle is CKVL_. And wherever I do, I can put it on it. And
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the live stream. Great to talk to a fellow Fox. So much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
And for all of you, be sure to stay tuned for more of the Bishop Fox live stream from DEF CON.